How are we all?
Awesome.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think we should kick off with obviously recognising relapses, because me and Nance spoke about this, about coming up with this topic. And when we hear relapsing, we automatically think addiction. That's not quite true. Obviously, it does play a factor, but it could be mental health breakdown as well. So, would you like to elaborate on that, Nance?
Oh, relapsing. Wow. There's predictable patterns of relapse. Phase 1 is complacency. It begins when we get comfortable. We've confessed our problems, dealt with them, and made real progress. Then we get comfortable and stop praying about it and working at it. Before we know it, we become complacent. There's 4 phases, so why don't we begin with that one? Complacency.
Yes. Yeah. We do complain a lot.
No,
but that could be our inner ego.
No, complacent. Complacent.
Well, we do complain though, don't we?
That's true. That's true.
We do, and that can be a indicator of complacency. If the other person is complacent and we're not content in their complacentness,
then we complain.
Yeah, that's where I was getting.
We knew that, Adam.
Nice.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah.
Go on, Nick.
Oh, so are we on complacency? Yes, I think. I think just generally, it's easy to slip into old habits, bad habits, and I think I know I have bad habits. That can affect my mindset and my sort of productivity, and if I'm, I think habits are hard to change, and they're hard to break, bad habits sometimes, and you've got to work on the good habits. And I think with me, if I get complacent, I can slip into old ways of thinking or bad habits. So for me, just talking about sort of that's less about sort of addiction things, but sort of a way of having the right sort of mindset in my life to be productive and things. I think I can't, I have to be sort of make sure I'm always sort of focused on what I want to achieve and having positive, good habits. Because if I'm complacent, I find that it's easy to think into sort of more. Less productive, less positive ways of thinking, so I think definitely resonates with me generally the wider thing about complacency. Yeah, certainly.
Can you give us an example of what would be of that for you, Nick?
Well, I think for example, like I don't know, like gratitude, being grateful, and every day, build that into my day, so that like in the morning, I make sure I start the day by being grateful for what I've got, and at the end of the day, and being that into something, a habit I do every day. And if that's, for example, slips, then I find myself it's very easy to focus on where I haven't gone and what's not going right, and get into a negative way of thinking about my business, my job, what I'm not achieving, and rather than looking at actually what I am achieving, and for me, one of the tools you can use is obviously being grateful for what you got and appreciating and valuing it, and recognizing it, and for me that's a habit that I have to do every day consciously, and if I get complacent and I let things like that slide and don't be have a habit of being grateful every day, then it's easy to.
Absolutely.
That's my example.
Yeah. Welcome, Skip.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Adam.
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Absolutely. So I think the next question is, we're talking about relapsing, and that could be any sort of relapse. What does relapsing, like when you see it, what does it look like from all your experiences?
Well, let me share a few thoughts, if I may, from the perspective of depression. And there's a couple ways of looking at that. One is certainly I think it starts with the way we think. Because when you're battered by depression, you have one of the symptoms are the negative ruminations, the horrible negative thoughts that just batter you day and night. You're worthless. You're a failure. You let people down. You let your family down. In my case, you let the Army down. You let your department down. Who's going to want to hire you? And on. Just these thoughts that batter you. And of course, if you think about it, when are these thoughts the loudest? It's in the silence of the night. It's when you're laying there in bed, as in my case, struggling with horrendous insomnia, and your wife's sleeping soundly. My wife's sleeping soundly next to me, and I'm tossing and turning and just being assailed by these thoughts. And so it starts with, I think, thoughts. If you're given to these thoughts, boy, you messed up there. Man, you're just not doing things right. And now you began to ruminate on that. And it becomes a belief, well, I guess I'm just not very good. And well, I guess this. And you begin to think about the times you failed or the times you've messed up, maybe the progress you haven't made that you wanted to make in certain areas. And now you have a belief, I guess I am a mess up. I guess I really am worthless and so forth. If you believe that, now it leads to actions. You get unmotivated. Instead of taking some action, you become unmotivated. I guess, why bother? Sit on the TV or sitting on the couch and just sit there and scroll through channels, or sit here and watch what I call stupid, inane shorts on the phone, and isolate yourself. And so thoughts, beliefs, actions. The other can be that certain things can be triggering. And in my case, again, I'll use myself as an example. Certain holidays, for instance, Memorial Day. If I'm not careful around the time of Memorial Day, that can be a trigger. Veterans Day can be a trigger for me. The time of my dad's birthday or the time he died, again, the same thing for my daddy, my stepfather. The time of his birthday, the time of his death. Those can be triggering times if I'm not careful and prepare myself. Okay, this can be a vulnerable time. What are you going to do, Skip, to watch yourself, to keep gauge of where your emotions are at? So I think it's a way of looking at that, recognizing we may have certain vulnerable times, or we're going down that path where we're succumbing to these negative thoughts and where they can then lead us if we do not stop those and say, no, that's not true. I'm not going there. I've been there before. I've seen where that leads, and I'm not going to succumb to that.
Yeah. Ashly?
Well, I know I had kind of touched on some of this. What day was that? Monday? I don't even know. This week has kind of been a blur. But I noticed that over the last weekend, I had sunk myself into that relapse. And Adam, you and I had kind of talked about it, where I wasn't necessarily engaged. So like you guys said, Nick and Dr. Skipp, as far as like going into those negative thoughts in the mindset. And I really let it kind of close me off versus leaning in to a conference that I was at. I was more like, yeah, I really don't want to be here, where you're just like, you're shutting yourself off from being able to learn something new. But in that moment, when we had a specific speaker that came on and he was talking about leaning in versus, leaning back and just shutting yourself off, it almost triggered me like, hello, knock, knock, you're doing that right now. And then it almost caused me to lean in more when I really didn't want to at first. So it was very interesting to see how I learn when I'm closed off and when I learn when I'm open to receiving. So again, those triggers can happen from any little thing and set you back 5 steps when you thought, okay, I'm really moving forward. I've got all this momentum. And then it just stops you in your tracks when you revert back to those old patterns and habits.
Yeah. Janet?
Yeah, I think lots of good pieces here, Ashly, when you talk about triggers, and I think Dr. Skipp talked about that as well. I'll talk in the respect to PTSI. I know that I've done all this work and I'm doing really good. And I guess that's what you'd call complacency, Nancy. I'm just, I'm doing good. I think I'm doing really good. And didn't realize how hard how hard you can fall or get hit when something changes. And in this case, it was several police officers that were murdered, and then, which they were, ways from me, but in connection. But then there was a female RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, that was killed. And I knew somebody she worked with, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I went down that rabbit hole, and very grateful to have, friends that know me, that after a couple posts, she reached out to me and says, hey, let me help you get out of this rabbit hole. Because, that's another thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, you've gone to this other level. You can get back there and you can keep going up. And just when it happens, say, okay, this happened. I don't have to stay there anymore. I know how it feels not to be there. And that can be for any relapse, whether you want triggers or what. And I really think it's all triggers that cause us to relapse. It's we just don't go there. Something has to, like Dr. Skipp said about different events that lead to that. And so that's why it's recommended we don't watch the news. But when you're in a certain environment and connected to certain people, it doesn't matter. You don't have to watch the news. It shows up for you anyways. So really, that's part of your environment. And if you're going to live in that environment, you're going to hear about it, right? And that's my environment, and that's where I want to be, in that environment, to serve more. And and this is just my journey. It's the ups and downs, but I have more ups than downs now. And just for people who are listening, do you know what? You can get there. You can't get there alone. Like, we all need our friends. Like Nance knows me, and she's seen me through a whole bunch of that stuff. So, and I'm really grateful for platforms like this that are talking about it openly. We don't talk about it openly enough for people to learn that, you know what? You're not broken. You just had a little bump in the road. And it's just like a flat tire. You got to fix it. Get somebody to help you fix it. I can't change a tire, by the way. I call somebody else to do that.
I've never changed a tire either, Janet. I have never changed a tire.
Hit the bump.
Bizarre. And I think the relapse happens before the relapse, when we begin contemplation. Right? We think about, I'm tired. Maybe I'm just going to sleep in a little bit. I deserve that extra rest when we know that sleeping in could be a predecessor to depression.
Like avoidance.
Right? Like avoidance. I know with me, when my struggles with depression, that's why my alarm is set for 5 a.m. and I get up at 5 a.m. Last night I was out late. So my 5 a.m. one snooze, I went all the way to 6:30 and I didn't beat myself up for it. It was a different circumstance. And I recognize that because I'm a little bit tired today, a nap, it's not necessary, Nance. I made myself a lovely cup of dandelion coffee with cinnamon, clove, and ginger. Caffeine wasn't what I needed. It was the herbs to heat myself up, to get myself going. The feeling of coffee without the actual coffee. Because the second phase that we go into is confusion, where we begin to rationalize and play mental games with ourselves. I'll just buy that bottle of vodka and keep it in my cupboard to avoid temptation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I know what you're hinting here, Nance. I really do when it comes to addiction.
Well, but it's the same for me. I'll just
Yeah.
buy that extra bag of licorice for my mom because I buy my mom treats and I deliver them to her. I'll just open it up and have a few pieces. I know I can't have a few pieces. I'm going to mow down the whole bag and I'm going to feel bloated. I know it. I know it. I know what the things are. And licorice doesn't sound like a big deal. It's the big bag.
Yeah.
That's
And one
jelly.
bag to another, right? Like, I love them all. Oh, yep. Yep. Anybody else?
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I just, you know, we use the word triggers a lot, and I think, you know, if any sort of, because behavior which doesn't benefit us, I guess there's triggers. What triggers us to have, to do behavior that we know deep down isn't beneficial for us. And I guess, I've sort of, we often in this group, we talk about triggers, and I wonder, if we know we often know about what our triggers are. Why sometimes do we? I guess it's a thing of where is that awareness of of our, not just awareness of our triggers, but if we do know what our triggers are, how do we still then sometimes I mean, what do you think, Adam? We know what our triggers are, but yet sometimes we still sort of.
I think when it comes to triggers, I think it's what is it for us? Because because we can identify our triggers, but it could be something totally different for someone else. So it's what is it for them? So it could be words, it could be someone's behavior, it could be down to childhood trauma, it could be anything. It's just what is it? What tips us over the edge?
I'll give you an example of something that totally took me one time, and this is many years ago, but growing up, I was always told I talked too much, I was too loud, and stuff like this. So I was at a healing workshop in Hawaii in a Buddhist temple, and our class hadn't started yet, and I was sitting outside, and there were other people talking, and they had a yoga meditation class going on inside, and somebody came outside and just looked at me and yelled at me and told me to be quiet. And you know what? I went back to being that kid again. It upset me for the rest of the day, and it was a learning experience, but it just took me down that rabbit hole and just like, oh my God. And it wasn't me, but inside it was me. Like I took that on, even though I knew it wasn't me that was talking. So sometimes, Nick, I think that we have stuff so deep, that's a total different trigger than what it was with the PTSI, right? And so we just don't know. But the thing is to recognize that we can come out of it. We've learned to be in that other place, and to recognize, you have to absorb it. You have to look at it. It's like take it apart and say, okay, what's going on here? Okay, I know I don't have to be there anymore. I'll go back to this. And I think that's what's important, because it doesn't matter where you are. We're still that little kid someplace inside that we had totally forgotten about what something happened. And then we go there. And it's not that we've practiced and we've been any better with that. It's just sidelined, right?
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what tips me over the edge is the fact that for the first couple of years of our lives, we're being encouraged and we're being persuaded to talk. But then when it comes to like the school or the library, for example, we have to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Or shall I rephrase that? Where we're being encouraged to walk and talk, but in school we're being told to shut up and sit down.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I think, looking at young children and the imagination they have is, and the creativity of their mind is, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's incredible. Look at my own young son, and yet as you get older, don't let the imagination run away with you. Don't, you're crazy. It's almost like we're told to restrain our imagination, not be a bit more as you get older, to act a bit more. And I think it is that, it's the playfulness and imagination, creativity. And as a child, as we grow up, we sort of have to learn the norm is perhaps to, restrict some of these things. When actually, I think the benefits to our well-being as well of, the playfulness, the creativity, and imagination is actually something we should do more, be more like children that way.
I think that's one clear indication that you're going towards a relapse behaviors when you start being too serious about life.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Definitely.
Too serious, like overreacting about things that aren't really right. Like you can take an afternoon off if you're someone that struggles with the addiction of overworking, people pleasing. There's a few that fall into that category, right? Like you can just make macaroni for dinner from a box. You don't have to make.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point. I think,
right, like
cereal.
Yeah, break.
I think where we, I think in some ways where if we have a very prescriptive way of how things should be, then we struggle when things aren't that way. And I think life can throw curveballs and be challenges. I think if anyone, myself, but this is how my day should be. This is how this is what success should be. Whatever. This is how this is how healthy eating be. We all have routines and expect. And I think the more rigid we are in how things should be, when things come along that throw things off course, we struggle to cope with that. And I think being flexible the more flexible we can be, is that actually things don't have to be a certain way. That helps us cope with the challenges more, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to know from Ashly, because obviously I know she's got a hands full with a fella, 6 kids, homeschooling, business. How the fuck do you not relapse?
Oh, Adam, it's not. It's a very good question, and I have done my absolute best over the last, I'd say, for sure, probably 5 years, to make sure that I'm practicing my self-care. No matter how simple it is. But for example, so this week I ended up getting a really bad sinus infection. So I was in bed for like 3 days. And I had to be okay with that. As much as I knew and desired to get stuff done, and I knew that I had work to do, my husband is gone this week. So I'm like, okay, well, I can check emails from my bed. I can answer emails from my bed. That doesn't require I have to be at the computer. But it was a moment for me to be able to rest, even if I was zoning out watching a TV show and maybe have finished a whole season of something. But it gave me the opportunity to just take a break, even though I also knew that my body was under intense stress fighting the sinus infection. But that's something that I make a priority, is doing, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, my self-care. every single day, even when I'm absolutely feeling like trash. But it is very difficult. It's not easy, especially when you've got a lot of moving parts to the equation. There are a lot of times that I find myself relapsing into the I'm failing my kids. They're not learning enough. I'm not a good mom to be homeschooling them. But then I also have the counter of I'm not sending them to public education school. They're learning exactly what they need to learn at the exact moment they need to learn it. So I have that mental ping pong in my head, and it sometimes becomes difficult. And when that happens, then I get into journal, I get into my prayer time, I put on worship music, whatever that looks like, where it kind of refocuses my brain. But there are also moments of I feel guilty for investing in myself because my husband's business is over here and that's where my focus should be, bringing in the income. He's working and I'm just at home. I'm just here. I'm just taking care of the kids. My role is to just do that, not pursue what I desire and what I want to pursue. So then that guilt, it kind of shrinks me back and it makes me feel like this big. When in reality, when things are moving and there's momentum, I can feel this big. So it's recognizing those triggers, and also, like you said, Janet, asking for support, asking for help, going to the people that you know are going to uplift you and bring you kind of out of that funk and say, no, damn it, like this is a moment for me and I'm going to continue pursuing it. That guilt is not going to overwhelm me because there is a time element to building a business. It's not something that can just boom, okay, you're successful, you've hit $1 million, you're this, you're that, you're whatever. Like, no, starting something from the ground up takes time, it takes investment, it takes dedication. And it's remembering that and also making that known. And people aren't going to always support you, and you just find the ones that do. But it is a hard balance sometimes, and I've taken the word balance out and kind of scratched that and use the word, how can I make everything flow in harmony? Some days I feel like, okay, yeah, we've got it a little together, and other days I'm like, screw it, I'm done. No, peace out. Like, see you later. It's just you figure it out along the way. There is no manual, especially to parenting. So, like you just kind of go with the flow, and you have to be flexible.
Yeah. Well, I love that, Ashly. If I may, being farther along, my wife and I, well, I should say my wife primarily, but homeschooled our 5 children, and being in the military, being a physician, my life was very busy. Our lives were very busy, so I was gone a lot, and so the brunt of being home with the kids obviously was on Sherry. And I know she felt guilty because she wasn't bringing in income. And yet I would frequently tell her, honey, if you didn't do the things you did, I couldn't do the things I do. And so I would tell her repeatedly, if something happened to you, I'm going to have to hire 3 people to do what you do. Somebody to homeschool the kids, somebody to manage the household, and somebody to take care of me. So I hope you can look at that from a little bit different perspective, that perhaps that you, by doing all the things that you do, taking care of the kids, schooling the kids, and managing the household, really allow your husband to do the things that he does, that it's a partnership. And that's the way I always viewed it with my wife, that this is a partnership, and that all that she does frees me up to do all that I do. And never looked at it that, gee, she's not doing this. No, it was we were in this together. And we spent 26 years in the Army, and you don't stay that long unless families are committed, because there's a price to be paid.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that's, I was sick 6 years ago. And one of the things that my husband had said, like after I was recovered, he's like, I'm telling you, if something really does ever happen to you and you leave this earth, I'm going to get married right away, because there's no way I can handle all of this. He's like, put me in charge of millions of dollars worth of a project, to design it, to do everything. Cool as a clam. Put me in a grocery store and my anxiety is like this. Because it's not something that he takes care of on a regular basis. So he just, the intricacies of things is foreign. And he recognizes it when I'm gone for, say, a weekend or a few days. And yeah, it makes him a little stressed. Just a little.
That's good too.
Mm.
I did that one time. I went away for 2 weeks. My kids were, I don't know, grade 4 and 5. And my husband took 2 weeks off. And I came home and he says, laundry doesn't pile up if you do a load every day. I said, guess what? That's your job now. You know how to do it best. You know what? He still does laundry. And our kids are 50 and 49 and 50 now. So, but I think that it's also a legacy, and it took me a long time, Ashly. I was exactly where you were. There were 2 years I stayed home with my kids and looked after somebody else's kids, and I never bought myself anything. And my husband one day says, why don't you buy something? But it's learned behavior, because I can remember my mother, and she'd look through the catalog and she'd say, oh, I like that. And I'd say, well, why don't you get it, Mom? And she says, no, I have to look after you kids. I have to buy you kids stuff. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's a learned behavior. So what are we teaching our kids if we don't look after ourselves? Mm-hmm. Right? Because if we don't look after ourselves, they learn that behavior that we have to give everything to one thing and not to ourselves. Yeah. And that's something I had to learn. And again, same thing. I got really, really sick. And I always say, when I got my diagnosis and stuff, I always said that I was, because I'd been in 4 car accidents in 10 years before I was diagnosed, and thought that my trauma was from these accidents. And I always said, God gave me 3 taps, and then he gave me a 2x4 because I didn't sit long enough to realize that I needed to change something. Mm-hmm. So that's a lesson, and that's what I always try and remember, that when I go down, I know that I've learned before how to come back up, and I just need to take that time to do it and ask for the help.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Janet, because obviously for months on, obviously Nance, everyone knows that I'm in recovery, and for months on end, when practicing these 12 steps, I had my mum on my resentment list. And I said to my sponsor, I said, you know what? I don't know what to say to her. I want to say something, but I don't know how to say it. And I was pondering this for a few months. And what day are we on that Friday? But so on Wednesday, I basically was listening to someone who was in a similar position to me. And she was basically explaining that she was explaining to her father that even though he's done her wrong, traumatized her, she was nervous as fuck, which I am. She didn't come across as aggressive. She was just explaining of how that traumatic experience made her feel. And I'm thinking, that's the answers I need. So that's what I'm going to do. So obviously I'm going to speak to my sponsor, and he's going to help me through it, and I'm going to approach her when the time's right.
Good for you. I'll give you another tool if you want.
Yes.
Because it was a tool given to me, and I've used that ever since, is before you do this, write a letter to your mother, write everything that's bothered you, and traumatized you and everything, write that all in a letter. Don't mail it. Take it out to a safe place. I do it as a ritual and put a little bit of essential oil on and then burn it. And then you've gotten rid of all that angst and anger and all that out, that you'll have a clearer way of saying it without being that resentful. You've already dealt with that part of it without traumatizing her, but it's a release for you, so that it'll come easier to say what you really want to say without causing more dissension.
Do you know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Thanks.
As well,
Yeah, I've just got a
recognizing-
message that he'll be leaving in about a few minutes. So, go on, Nance. Sorry.
recognizing the inner child wound as well.
Yeah.
Saying to little Adam, I'm sorry, like talking to little Adam as well, little, medium, small, whichever, all of the areas of your life. Going into those places too, where I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I'm sorry that I didn't care for you in those moments. I'm sorry that I felt that perhaps her feelings were more important than yours. Ho'opo'ono as well is very powerful. Very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, before you go, any final words, Skip?
I think one of the important things about relapse are things that have already been shared here. The idea of self-care is so important. And I think that if we are maintaining that self-care, and part of that is to be kind to ourselves. And I think in this day and age, there's such a push to portray ourselves and as this paradigm that we've achieved all of this and we've made it, this idea that we know all this, we are competent at everything, and all of us have our own vulnerabilities. All of us have certain weaknesses and so forth. And it's important to be kind to ourselves and give ourselves some grace. And I think if we do that, if we would treat ourselves with the same kindness we would want to treat a young child, I talk about it, the idea, treat yourself like you would treat a 3-year-old, with the same kind of kindness and grace and forgiveness. And if we can go through life with that idea, that then when we do mess up, we can learn from it, but offer ourselves grace and forgiveness, that recovery from that is so much easier. And there's a lot less likelihood then to play the guilt game, the would-have, should-haves, could-haves, and beat ourselves up and then spiral farther down, and allow ourselves to now get back on the trajectory to say, no, I'm not going to go down that path because I know where that leads me, whether that's grabbing a bottle, whether that's some other addiction, or whether that's with those negative thoughts that I talked about that lead to negative beliefs, that lead to negative behaviors, as in my case, but so many other ways that are detrimental to our life, because pain has to go somewhere. And so we want to find better ways to deal with that pain. And I think kindness to ourselves, grace to ourselves, forgiveness to ourselves is a way to help prevent that.
And it starts with forgiveness to self as well.
Yes, sir. And oftentimes we are more often than not, we are our harshest critics.
Yeah.
And it's hardest to forgive ourselves more often than not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, clearly you're off now, aren't you? Going to pick up your grandson.
Yes, sir. But thank you all. I'm so glad to be on with you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Adam. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Skip. Good to meet you.
Yeah. Any response to that?
Yeah, just adding. I think what Skip said resonates in that I've heard. I think we we our own worst critic. And I think, we wouldn't treat our friends as bad as we treat ourselves in some ways. If I said to my friends, criticize them in a way I sometimes criticize myself internally, I think my friends would be shocked, And I think, what Skip was saying is about, we need to be more sort of perhaps, less. Well, we have to try and sort of be less critical. We need to give ourselves, a bit more bit of recognition for what where we're doing well, and actually, I think it's perhaps sometimes we also set too high standards. Where we're in life and what and the value of what we're doing. I think also, Ashly, it was interesting what you said earlier. About you and your partner, you have different roles in your house, and your partner's working in a career job, and they look after the kids, and it's easy to place different value in what you do or your partner, but obviously the value is equal. It's just different. And I think that's part of we need to not judge ourselves and criticize ourselves by judging ourselves in the terms of what we think we should be doing or doing better. But I think Skip's point, I've done myself, self-criticizing, and so it's an easy.
Well, I'd like to jump on this if it's all right, Nick, because I know you was homeless at one point.
Yeah.
What does that look like from a mental health perspective? When obviously, because I know we've all hit rock bottom, but when you're homeless, is that rock bottom?
Well, I mean, for me, I'd sort of lost sort of everything in a spiral from when a series of things. I've been getting redundant, I've been working for a while, and then I split up my wife, and then COVID came along, and I became homeless, and it's all sort of ended. One thing after another, got caught up in a spiral, which I think is the way these things can happen. It's one thing then leads to another, and I was thinking, I was obviously, more things got worse. I was struggling, thinking, well, how am I going to get put myself back on my feet, and then something worse would happen, and obviously but I did get to a point where I thought, I've lost everything. Obviously lost my family. I've got not working. I've got no. I'm homeless. I've lost everything. How there is the point you think, well, how do I even start getting back to where I was? But I guess rock bottom is a tricky one, because obviously you can always be worse. I guess there's you still have to be grateful for what you do have, and I was lucky that I did have friends and family who helped me get back somewhere to live with support, and obviously led me sort of picking my life back up. But I think the lesson I learned was things can happen out of your control sometimes, and they do test you, and I think it's trying to sort of have again, it goes back to the support of knowing who you can turn to in times of that. We all, perhaps we don't realize, hopefully we all have someone we can turn to, and perhaps we don't realize, it's those are times where it tests actually who you have turned to. But it's a tricky one, really. No, definitely.
Any responses?
I got to jump on that one. The rock bottom just drives me absolutely insane, because, and this is what Spirit showed me, so I was typing it away. We've seen The Lord of the Rings, perhaps?
No.
Yeah.
And The Journey of the Hobbit? Not seen Lord of the Rings.
I don't.
Okay, so Lord of the Rings, that's okay. Lord of the Rings, there's a young fella. We'll call him Adam. And Adam wants to go out on an adventure, and he comes across some really difficult situations, some really difficult low points in life. You might call these catastrophic experiences, situations and challenges that you just don't think that you can rise up to. Rock bottom. Look at the geography of the earth. Where is that? There's always a place out of that. So they're very difficult situations. They're very hard situations. When you look back on them, it was the perspective that you were looking at them from. It's the perspective that you're looking at them from. Looking back on it now, was it that bad? And sometimes that's why we would look back on it and go, well, you know, it wasn't really that bad. So I can have another drink. Right? Because I'm still here. I'm not infallible. Whereas we realize that it's part of the hero's journey where we're continually growing, evolving, and then we have setbacks, and we have challenges, and we have obstacles. A setback is a heck of a lot easier to get over than rock bottom. A challenge is easier to get over than rock bottom. If you were in ICU and you thought that you were in rock bottom, I think you might lose some of your optimism. It's a very pessimistic attitude, rock bottom. So look at what you've learned. Celebrate the success of that. Like, and I mean like serious celebration every day, right? Like woo woo, like a lot. Like
I think we don't celebrate our achievements enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow, like big, like just share with a friend how well you've done.
I mean, with me, I've got a flat, and every day I'm grateful. I've had this at one point. I mean, every single day for the last 2 years, I'm so grateful for having a flat, and just one little example. But I think, gratitude. I think when you've had any sort of challenge that and in life, that hopefully that the lesson you come out of is to be grateful for what you do have, and particularly when that's definitely something from my own experiences, gratitude and what I do have and what I have achieved. And it's like a hero's journey when you come through. It's like courage and bravery can only be done in challenging situations. You can't be courageous and brave unless you're going through severe, challenging situation. You can't be courageous and brave in an easy normal life. So I guess that's it's what the hero's journey. When you get through the other side, what have you learned and what have you be grateful for? So I agree about that.
That's exactly it, and I want to echo what Janet's just said. You're right. We don't celebrate our achievements enough, but at the same time, we don't celebrate our losses either. And what I mean by that is, we don't celebrate losing a job. We don't celebrate losing a partner or anything like that. Is it hard? Yes, but there's always the saying: one door closes, another one opens. But
Celebrate that we survived it. That's the biggest thing. When I went through my stages, what I'd call, my trauma, aware, connect, recovery, celebration is left out. And so when I went through that, I turned 50 that year, and I told my daughter, and so many people say, oh, I don't want to celebrate my birthday. Do you know what? I said, throw me a big party, because I nearly didn't make it to 50. And I celebrate my birthday every year. And there was a podcast I was on, and I very seldom listen back to one of my podcasts that I was on. But I listened back to this one, and I went and I said to my husband, damn, I'm good. You know what? You have to do it. We have to recognize that we have value. And I think that lots of times we don't. And I didn't for a long time, just actually like raising kids and doing stuff and not bringing in a paycheck. We put so much into that paycheck, our value into that paycheck, without realizing the work that we do is valuable. What you do with the kids, how you teach, that is our legacy. You can't give a paycheck to build a legacy.
Nope.
I celebrate when I hang up the clothes.
Awesome. Do a little happy dance. When I was doing one of my courses, it was an open book, and I'd answer a question, I'd stand up and do a happy dance, and then I'd go back to the next one. But that's the only way I could get over the stress of having to do this exam. And I thought every time I accomplished one question, I did a happy dance.
I have a basket of shirts to hang up in my closet right now that's probably been there for at least a week, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll get to it when I
Well,
get
what
it.
you could do, Ashly, is obviously after this, get some music on, whatever you listen to, and then while you're hanging clothes, sorting them out, have a bit of a boogie and sing along.
I probably will, because originally I was going to go outside and move a chicken coop to relocate some chickens into a different spot, but now I think it's raining. So
But perfect opportunity to hang up shirts.
I know, right? To do laundry, because I've got a lot of it.
Nothing wrong with dancing in the rain either.
Well, I handled chicken stuff last time in the rain, and I really just don't feel like doing
It's kind
it.
of yucky, isn't it?
It poured yesterday and this morning, so everything is so gushy and muddy and poopy and gross, and I just
You got to dance in the rain when you can be barefoot in the grass and you don't have to worry about all that shit.
yeah, right.
I've meditated in the rain. Really
Yeah,
good.
why not?
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
also meditating inside.
Oh, I do that.
Both options.
And I think one of the common discussions that we all had here was the importance of setting yourself up for success.
Yes.
And recognizing if you go down, you can come up.
Yeah. The definition of failure is when you stop trying.
And I think life never, stops being up and downs. I mean, that's the thing. We never get there. We never life becomes, a flat point of success. We say we made it. It's all good now forever. I think life will always have ups and downs, and that's the point, really. So we're accepting, but that is reality of life. We'll have the good times, but then there's going to be a bad time, a challenging time, and then we'll have success again. And that's
No happy without sad.
it's exactly.
And creating a structure in your life so that you're always doing the things that you need to do. Self-care. And I mean buying foods that will fill your body with energy.
Yeah.
Not depriving yourself of things so that you need to fill yourself. Right? Deprivation is a terrible, terrible self-defeating way of being.
You mean potato chips aren't filling?
They
Oh,
are. Potato chips are
chips.
really grounding. And you can make a wonderful homemade dip with lots and lots of vegetables and put this much dip on a chip.
Popcorn with lots of butter and salt.
Right? Whatever it is, right? If you're feeling guilty about it, tune into that.
Oh, I don't feel guilty about popcorn.
Where did that come from? Right? You're not snorting cocaine off a chip, are you?
No.
There you go. Perspective.
Well, and really, in reality, let's be honest. If we're not getting hit with challenges, are we really challenging ourselves enough? Or are we living complacent and comfortable?
Definitely, that's complacency, is it?
Yeah.
I think you hit it, Ashly. And I would say surround yourself with people that fill you up and that inspire you and that keep you going and are there to, if you trip, to just give you a hand up. I think that's most important. And to watch the mental health warriors, because we have fun and we've had challenges and we can help anybody that needs help to get going.
Well,
Right,
it's like a gambler that starts thinking. A gambler is thinking about gambling as soon as they change their route and begin going towards the casino. A drinker begins contemplating drinking when they begin going that way, a shopaholic begins filling their cart, their wish list, change the direction, reroute, and go to that support system. Phone that friend, call that coach, reach out and say, can I come and visit? And then be honest. Rip that Band-Aid off and just say, this is what was going on inside of me. There's no
And they're not alone.
Yeah, right?
I think so many people are used to just wearing the mask
Oh,
and
100%.
and pretending that everything is fine, comparing the highlight reel, when in reality, you have no idea what the behind the scenes looks like.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I sat in the hairdresser's chair yesterday getting my hair done. I got some gorgeous purple streaks, just loving it. And the way that the chair was and my body was, my skin was folding. And I looked in the mirror and I audibly said, oh my God, you look so fat. It was the angle and the perspective. So today I really acknowledged that and looked into that. And then what can I do to create a healthier lifestyle? How can I celebrate my body? Whatever it is for you, you got to dig in there. Get into the bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Pull it out and look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think one of the, like I said, one of the great things about this group is it shows that we wear masks, but the reality is we're us five here, just a selection of people. Actually, everyone has their own challenges and insecurities and doubts, and we all do. I think everyone on the planet, and I think I think that's a good thing. We're not a unique group here. We're just. I think anyone who watches this show would say, actually, I'm sure most people would say, actually, yeah, I can resonate with that, or definitely. I think these are not unusual things we're talking about. They're common things most people could relate to in some way, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, we're not talking about being Wonder Woman and losing our plane. Did you know that that's what happened? Wonder Woman. Okay, because I've been wondering about this for a while, and then I got the answer yesterday when I was talking to a call representative. Where is Wonder Woman's plane? Because it hasn't been in the Marvel comics for a long time.
Okay.
It's an invisible plane, and she parked it and couldn't remember where she left it. She couldn't find it. So there's an opportunity for me to find that plane.
That could be yours.
Well, speaking of that, I have actually drawn Wonder Woman.
There you go.
My what is the word I'm looking for? My alter ego is Wonder Woman. I actually had my neighbor found me a Wonder Woman measuring cup, and it's now my pen holder.
Oh, I have something for you, Ashly. I'll send you a message. Got something
Okay.
for you.
I had some AI photos generated of me in Wonder Woman.
I've seen them.
I love it.
I've seen them.
Adam has seen them.
Where's yours, Adam? You said you drew her.
It's in the
Next
book
time,
somewhere.
maybe.
I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
Yes, Adam. I'll put in your group.
It is in the group, yeah.
Okay.
Right, well, anyway, we've already dived into next week's topic, which we're on literally this time next week.
Okay, what are we talking about next week?
Are you coming on?
I will if I think it's a topic I can talk about, but
Right,
there's not much I can't.
Healing the inner critic.
Oh, I can speak.
Oh, that's nice to see.
So
That's
what
a
time
good
is next week? Is it 8 or 9?
9 o'clock UK.
Okay, because I didn't have the 23rd on my schedule. So I'll
Neither did I.
Well, we
Oh,
talked about it last week, didn't we?
We did.
Okay, so that's okay. It's 1 o'clock Mountain Time for me now, so it would be 2 o'clock.
No, it'd be 1 o'clock.
Okay, same time as
It's this
today.
time next week. This
I
time.
thought you were 8 o'clock.
Yeah. we're 1 hour into the stream.
So starting at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
So 1 p.m.
Okay, so that I'll be on Pacific time there. I'm actually going to be in Washington State.
Cool beans.
Well,
No, because 9 o'clock is 3 p.m. Central Time for me.
right. Well, I'm going to end this, guys, and then we'll have this discussion off camera. So there you go.
Okay, please.
Excellent.
See,
Bye,
we're all
everyone.
confused sometimes.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
I don't know why I've just tried doing that.